Our first member writes, I am blown away. You never know when you read those words whether that's going to be a good blown away or a bad blown away. When I start telling the truth about myself, and when I'm being more of myself, other people are themselves too. Yeah, we're actually all kind of dying to be genuine and connected to each other. We really are. Like, we were born for it. Like, watch a newborn cling to its mother. What proof do you need? We want to connect. But then we tried to connect as little kids, and people told us, no, 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 not like that. Stop, be careful. No, no. We heard the word no so many times that eventually most people just give up. They go, this just ain't worth it. I'm going to do it wrong no matter what, so I'm not going to try. Somebody has to have the courage to start it, to start the connecting. She continues, people even thank me for being honest. I think they can feel my honesty. Yeah, they really can. It's an infectious thing. You go into a room and you're just honest and open, and you will find that other people will gravitate to you. Not everybody. Some people are so used to the commerce of lying and deceiving and manipulating that they don't know what to do with honesty. But some people love it, and you'll start a fire, and other people will come and join you around it. You continue. There might be some splashing here and there, meaning, we're all in the pool together and kind of drowning to various degrees. But I really do think who they really are feels who I really am. So thanks for guiding me about being myself, for telling me that I would feel more freedom if I was just myself. This is such good practice for me. I really feel the strength in being myself. I feel like I'm not a newborn anymore. When I manage to push through all the fear and act against my fear, and with trust in you and in my wise woman, I feel invincible. Bless your heart. It really does feel like that. As I watch people, I hear this word every other conversation. I'm struggling. I'm going, that's the problem. Let it go. Let go. The more you struggle, you don't feel stronger. You feel weaker. I learned a long time ago that when there are these funny little boats that you pedal with your feet. I don't know what they call them. But I learned that if you pedal at just a nice, even speed, it goes about as fast as it'll go. And if you pedal like crazy, put 100 times more effort into it, it doesn't really go faster. It just makes more splashing. Being invincible is a matter of just trusting and allowing and being ourselves, trusting in the love of others and trusting in ourselves that being ourselves is enough. You continue, when I tell the truth to my sister and to my friends, I feel like there's just nothing I can't do. I feel like this is all a new step for me, and it's exciting to just see how all these people respond to me as I'm different. It's a very cool. Yep, it really is. Fun letter. This is somebody who's just caught fire and realizes the freedom that comes from trusting, as opposed to intellectualizing, protecting, all the stuff that we've already proven doesn't work. So we figure, well, maybe if we do it twice as hard, it will. No, it doesn't. Here's a man who writes about his wife, Suzanne. And we'd been working together, the man who's writing and me and Suzanne, for several months. He said, I had a huge success last night. Suzanne was cranky and short with the boys and with me, and I told her several times that she seemed stressed. Now, notice how he doesn't say, wow, you're really being cranky, or why are you being a witch? He says, this is compassionate. You seem stressed. That's asking about somebody else's welfare. She agreed, he says. that she was stressed, but she kept finding opportunities to come back and talk harshly to the boys. When I finished with the boys, I went downstairs where I found her hunched over an ice cream container. I took her arm, and she turned and said, and I could just see her doing this because I know her, I know you're trying to help, but I need alone time. Now, what do we almost always do at that point? He was reaching out to love her. She was rebuffing him. And when we've made the effort to love somebody who's already prickly and they stab us, what do? We back off, which is what they think they want, but it's not what they need. Alone time rarely solves anything. There are occasions when it's a good idea, when two people are like, punching each other in the face. It's a good idea to separate them. He continues. I responded, Suzanne, come sit down with me and hold my hand. Now, notice he didn't ask her, what's wrong? What can I do? He simply said, come sit down with me and hold my hand. It was a directive. It could sound controlling, but it's brilliant. Because if she's sitting hunched over ice cream and snapping at her husband and kids, she doesn't know what's wrong, and she surely doesn't know what to do about it. So he's giving her an option. He's saying, let's just try this. Smart. She started to protest, he says. And I said, honey, I'm not asking. I'm telling you, come and sit with me and hold my hand. She started to protest again, but I think she looked at my face, realized that I was not kidding, and knew that I was being loving, not controlling. I mean, if you say to somebody, okay, take my hand and we're going to go sit on the couch together. No, that's not going to work, and that's not what he was doing. So she knew that I was being loving. She stopped mid-sentence and said, okay. That's what she's been looking for. She's been looking for help, but all of our lives, we've been programmed, we've been taught, we've been trained that when people offer help, what do? They criticize us, correct us, want us to do what they want. They're self-serving, they're angry. So we don't want to be helped. But she took a look at his face and heard the tone of his voice and went, okay. And he continues. She followed me to the couch where she held my hand and sat down with me, but leaned away from me to put her head on a pile of blankets. So she's like complying, kind of. She's going to go sit on the couch and hold his hand, but then she's going to lean away. This guy's had half a dozen opportunities to quit, to just go, well, then you're going to be this difficult, I'm going to walk away. He didn't. He continues. I rubbed her hand and then her back for a few minutes, and then I said, put your head in my lap and I'll just play with your hair, which must be something she likes. She sat up and she said, well, I'm trying to decide what I want. But see, she's already proven that she's grouchy, empty, in pain, afraid, something's wrong. So for her to, like she said, I need some alone time, not going to work. I'm trying to think about what I want while I'm fearful and crazy. No, that's not going to work. So what does he do? He doesn't quit. He responds, just lie down and let me play with your hair. I hope you're listening. This is so simple. He's being directive. He's saying, just try this. Because everything she's tried hasn't worked. And she's in a place where she's not going to think clearly. So she did. She put her head in his lap. It's brilliant that he didn't give up. Very few partners have that kind of guts. He continues, for the next 20 to 30 minutes, I sat and I played with her hair and just touched her face. I asked her how she was feeling, and she just nodded. Oh, that's really good. Because she was feeling relaxed and safe. She didn't feel like she actually had to answer the question, how are you doing? Well, right now, and I'm at about a 4 out of 10 on the safety scale. No, she just nodded. And he understood that she was now participating in this loving experience. He continues, a few minutes more, and she told me that she loved it, and she turned her body toward me, closer. I asked her if she was feeling more relaxed, and she said she was, and gave me a little smile. Are you getting the brilliance of this? This is giving him a little smile when we started off with snapping at everybody and eating ice cream alone in the kitchen and just go away and screw yourself. No, this is quite a change because he didn't quit. He continues. I wasn't in any rush. Oh, please let me pause. This is like very important. This is brilliance. If you attempt to do something kind for your partner so that your partner will calm down and not be angry at you, you're dead. Because then you're going to become impatient if they don't respond quickly. They're going to sense that they're being manipulated, dead. Nope, he wasn't doing that. He said, I wasn't in a rush. I just stayed there and I played with her hair and her face and told her that I loved her. It was wonderful. He said, I left the next day, which was the day that he wrote me, to spend time with my blood family, my parents, siblings, their kids, the whole family reunion kind of thing. And I just got a text from Suzanne who said, have a great trip. Thank you for taking care of me last night. I love you. This was a big moment for her. Big moment for her, big moment for him. They got to mutual loving by his persisting when she was being prickly and splashing him and frankly stabbing him in the neck. He said, I'm feeling really grateful this morning for you, for your love, for your guidance, and for the opportunity to love Suzanne. To everybody who's listening, this, the story I just told you, this is exactly what we talk about on every video chat. This is finding love, because he'd spoken to me earlier that day. Trusting it, remembering it, and sharing it. Perfect. And look how it turned out. And not looking for excuses not to love, as most people do. Oh, well, I can't love her when she's acting like that. And how many of those conversations have I heard? If you want to find an excuse not to be loving towards somebody, wait for 30 seconds, they'll give you one. This is a guy who originally told me when I first met him, 6 months or however long it's been, that he came from a loving family, as almost everybody who comes here does. They say, oh yes, my parents were very supportive and they were very loving, because that's all we know. How did I know that his family wasn't loving? Because his marriage was awful. And he was having a terrible time as a husband and at work and on and on and on. So remember, he went to the family reunion, and later that day he texted me and he said, I'm in the car with my family. I am going to need some help or I will have to kill myself. I said, tell me some more. He said, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I'm seeing everything you told me when we first met that I never saw before. He says everybody manipulates and attacks and argues about everything, no matter how small. And everybody fights to talk over each other all the time. I'm sure this is how I used to be, and I must have been insufferable. Yes, he really was. My first telephone conversation with him, I thought, hopeless. So he was insufferable. And he continues. He says, I must have done the same to Suzanne and the kids. And yes, he did. And now he's not. This is completely transforming a life in 6 months. It's nothing short of a miracle. We tend to accept our families as normal, even loving. He could not have known how screwed up they all were until he experienced something different. But he was willing to learn. and it's changed his entire family. And now when he goes back to his family of origin, he can see why he was so screwed up 6 months ago. He sees the behaviors that he was just utterly blind to before. It's just such a lovely story. It's lovely just to hear the sound of his voice on the phone. He feels so peaceful, confident, calm. It's beautiful. A couple came for an intervention, and their relationship had been pretty distant, in fact, even combative, which of course is why they came. She wrote, she said, "At one point, my husband, Jack, began to defend a member of his family. I got scared, and the wheels started turning in my head. I told Jack I was beginning to feel anxious and that I felt like he wasn't listening to me. And I told him that I was even beginning to feel some irritation. Jack remained calm and loving, but I was already blind and deaf at that point. Then I paused for a long time, took a few breaths, and I tried to imagine you being right here, just like you were when we were in Rome. And I remembered, wait, I said to myself, I've done this before. I've remembered what it's like to feel loved. I've remembered what it's like to be loving. I know I'm capable of doing it differently. So I said to my husband, I have so often fought you, resisted you, argued with you, and it's never made anybody happy. So instead, I choose to trust that you love me and that you're sincere when you say you do. Jack was just as loving as before, but I was able to let go of my anger and fear. And I told him, thank you for loving me. And he said, oh, it's really not that hard to do. You'd have to know Jack to know what a miracle this is. This guy was insufferable, much like the man that I just got through talking about who sent the email, the one who was so kind to his wife. He said, it's not really that hard to do. Whereas before he used to find loving her really hard to do. And she continues, and I felt so much better. The whole evening went better from then on. I can see how crucial it is for me to remember that I can be happy. It changes everything in our home. It's like these first two letters are illustrations of what we talk about all the time. Find, trust, remember, share. This is remembering. She was in the middle of being, I think in her words, something like blind and deaf. And she stopped talking and said to herself, wait a minute. I remember what it's like to feel loved. And I remember that I can do this. This is not impossible. She changed right then. She made a choice. Unless we remember feeling loved, that choice doesn't exist. And this is what I mean when I say that on the whole, free will is kind of a myth. Because if we don't feel loved, we can't choose the loving path. She stopped what she's doing, remembered, and then had another choice to make. That's so cool. Brilliant story. Thanks. In a relationship with a wise person, the flow of love is, by design, one way. We need somebody that we can talk to who will just love us without our worrying what we need to do in return. Essentially, we need a surrogate parent. We need somebody who loves us one way as our parents, as our parents' job was to do. I almost said as our parents should have done, but that really just doesn't fit, because if they weren't loved, then should becomes ridiculous. Telling somebody they should do something they can't do is just stupid. So with a wise person, it's like a parent. They love us one way. That really eliminates confusion, and it helps to heal our wounds. When somebody loves us without conditions, and we know that they require nothing in return, we can just lie back in safety, floating in a warm pool, and let our wounds heal. It's beautiful. Eventually, as you fill up, as your wounds heal, you become a wise man. to other people. I haven't really talked a whole lot on video chats, although I have on many other occasions, about what happens when two people interact who are both relatively filled, or at least relatively equally. What happens then? Can the flow be both ways? And I'm bringing this up because somebody asked me to address this question. Can the flow be both ways? Yeah, it really can. It just kind of, the love just kind of blows back and forth like the wind. It's not effortful. You don't need a traffic cop to direct it. It'll flow from one person to the other, and then from that person back to the first person, and then back again. And who knows, one person may be 60% of the loving in the conversation and the other 40. Nobody cares. You give, you take. Rarely is it even conscious. It's actually beautiful, like a dance. It's lovely having a good friend. And that's what a good friend is. Not a wise person. A friend is somebody with whom that you can go to get love, but who can then ask you to love them in the same conversation. And then past that is a partnership where you share everything. On occasion, even in a partnership, there may be times when the flow is one way, but nobody keeps score, so nobody cares. Just like there are times when the wind blows only in one direction, and then it shifts, and nobody sits and has a fuss about why did it shift. No, it just goes back and forth. It all depends on who is need, who needs most in a given moment. And when you're with somebody who understands that, it's a pretty beautiful thing to see. A woman called, new subject. She said she was about to make a pitch to sell a medical product to a client. That's her job. She said, well, I'm nervous about doing this. And I said, that's absolutely the worst single thing that you could be in selling something, afraid. Why? Because the instant you're afraid, your focus is on who? You, not the client, not the customer. And the customer feels your selfishness. And the customer's going, wait a minute, shouldn't the focus be on me? I mean, I'm going to pay you for something. So silly as it sounds, customers actually like to be the focus of attention. Gee, surprise. And when you're afraid, you also have no credibility. I watch people who are doing public speaking and they're not very experienced at it. And the first thing they stand up and do is say, well, I hope that you all will just, bear with me because I'm really kind of nervous. Understandable, but you just lost everybody in the room. I'm nervous, and so I'm only thinking of myself, and I'm blind and stupid, and so there's not really anything that I'm going to teach you. Not a great way to start a talk. So I'm talking to her, and I say, so how do you just be confident? Well, do what we talk about here in the video chats all the time. You found love. I'm loving you right now. Trust it and remember it. Remember that when you go into that sale, you have everything you'll ever need to be happy. I love you. There are other people who love you. I named some. God loves you. No matter what happens in that presentation, that sales pitch, they can't take those things from you. And those are the important things. Those things are items 1 through 100 in the priority list. So what can a customer do to you? Say no. So what? You still have all the important things. So now there's no fear. Now you can change your approach. You don't sell people. There are new books in the field of selling that are on this subject. You don't sell. You inform customers about how your product will help them. In other words, you demonstrate how you care about them. You love them confidently. Turns out people love to buy what they've been educated that they need. People love to buy, but they hate to be sold. all about love. Again, surprise. You can read a lot more about that in Real Love in the Workplace or other places, other blogs. Here's somebody who says, you hear a lot of talk about support groups and minority groups and blah, 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 victim groups or sympathy parties, I call them. I realized that I could fit into a lot of them. I never really thought about it before. I have a ton of justification for acting like a victim, says this writer. Check this out. This was my story. Severely neglected, unwanted, physically abused, sexually molested, emotionally abused, incest, divorced parents, foster child, freak, queer, woman, fat, widow, had a miscarriage, single mom, isolated, depressed, obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, anxiety, bipolar, suicidal, insomnia, cheated on, cheated with, pack rat, alcoholic, addict of countless things, and afraid of everything. That's quite a list. If you have a better list than this, please don't send it to me. She continues, that's a lot of bleep, bleep, bleeping problems, wouldn't you say? And all of that was true. But that's just not my story anymore. I have probably as much, if not more, justification to act like a victim than anybody yet. What's my story now? One word, truth. I choose truth as my story. Oh, I hope you're listening to this, because this is somebody really bearing their soul and telling you what it's like when their life is different. She continues, despite everything that's happened to me, I don't feel like a victim. So where did all of my problems go? Well, I have the greatest gift on earth. Love, she says with asterisks and in caps. It really is that simple. I feel love down to my cells. Love is such an insufficient word for such a huge thing. I hear constantly from all sorts of people. My sister just told me the other day, in fact, well, no amount of love can solve my problems. But that's crap. I'm living proof that it can. So she can't say that. Here I am. I'm healed. I'm whole. I'm complete. I'm worthy. I'm loved to the marrow in my bones. I'm valued. I have no real problems. And it's real. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. This is pretty good. These are unusually moving letters. And no, I don't make them up. These are better than I could write. I got a text message from a woman. This is a man who says, I got a text message from a woman who I dated once and called once. So 2 contacts, 1 date, 1 call. She was angry because I didn't let her know that I was not going to ask her out again. So this is a really kind of important dating protocol question. No kidding. It's really not your job to let her know whether you're going to ask her out again. It's not. You dated once. That's called initial contact. That's it. Now, to be fair, it would be considerate of you to tell her, but it's still not your job to tell her. See the difference? Are you responsible to tell her? No. Would it be thoughtful? Yeah, it would. But keep in mind, even if you do the thoughtful thing and tell her, or you don't, she's almost certain to have been angry either way. If you tell her, she'll almost certainly feel rejected, be irritated, and grill you about why you're rejecting her. If you don't tell her, she'll feel, this should sound familiar, rejected, and she'll have the additional excuse to be offended because you didn't tell her, and she'll contact you, and once again, you get grilled. Do you get it? So you lose either way, and it's not really your job, so not contacting her is a pretty reasonable option. He continues, in another incident, I dated a woman twice. and texted her that we were not a match. She objected to the fact that I sent her that message by text, which makes me wonder if what? Carrier pigeon, in person? But you see my point? You're simply saying not a match. That's all. And yet she objects even to the way you deliver the message. She would have hated every way you would have said it. If you'd gone in person, she would have hated that. If you'd called, she would have hated that. She hated the texting. She would have hated an email. Why? Because what people hear is you're not worthwhile. That's what she heard. That's why she reacted like that. People don't like hearing that. So what do? They get angry at you. No matter how you say it to them, whether you say nothing, whether you do it by text, whether you tell them in person, they're mad because they hear the same wrong and hurtful message. You're not worthwhile. And then they pepper you like a machine gun with questions. Well, but why? 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 And you're not obligated to answer all those questions. Not a match. So, bottom line, there is no effective way, no sweet, beautifully received, universally accepted way to say no. After 1 or 2 dates, you ain't partners. You're just exploring. In fact, that's why read the dating book. It'll tell you right off that in the beginning, for the first couple of dates, you tell people, I'm just gathering information and exploring. So I feel no obligation here. I'm just learning about you. If I go to a car dealership, for example, and they show me a car and I test drive it, do I have an obligation to call them and tell them I'm not buying it? No, I don't. Although that actually did happen to me once. Test drove a car and the salesman called me and was angry at me and yelled at me over the phone because he put so much time into it. Clearly he didn't understand the idea of salesmanship, huh? The one that we just talked about a little bit ago. He continues, when women stop talking with me, I assume that it's on purpose. Well, bless your heart. That you assume that because you're an adult and because they're adults and they're expressing their opinions with their behavior. You've gone on a date, they never contact you again. Or you send a text and they don't answer it. Well, and I hear this all the time, but I didn't get an answer. Yeah, you did. Dead silence is the answer. Go away. And if you obsess about why, you're just being stupid. He continues, when do I owe someone communication rather than just moving on? Oh, that's harder. If you're 16, it would be different. But, when you're really looking for a lifelong partner, if you date somebody more than twice and you're not getting at least somewhat serious about, them as a potential partner, then you're just goofing around and you don't know what you're doing. You need to read the dating book. So after some magical number of dates, I can't give you the exact number, maybe 3. I don't know. You do have a bit of a relationship because we're past just exploring the superficial stuff now. It's not a gospel, 3, just a guide. After 1 date, telling people that you're not interested would be polite but not required. So what do you say? You say, if you do choose to tell somebody after 1 date, you just say, thanks for our time together. And I've decided not to pursue this relationship. And you do it by text. Why? Because if whoever it is that you're telling, in this case, she, because it's a guy writing this, if she persists in asking why, you just simply don't answer. It's really simple. After 3 dates, it would be nicer to tell her in person, but you're still not partners. There's just it would be more courteous after you've spent that much time with somebody to tell them in person. And after 3 dates, again, you explain very simply with 3 or 4 sentences. You explain it's not a match. You might explain some of the reasons, I discovered that politics was more important to me than I thought, or religion, or sexual chemistry, or whatever. But you explain they're not a bad person. It's just not a match. Relax. Dating is information gathering. Sheesh. I must say that every other page in the dating book. Here's somebody who says, last night we were getting packed to evacuate our town due to wildfires. I must admit, this is the first email that I've gotten that started off with that sentence. So I told the kids to go get packed. They didn't want to at first. Kids don't understand. It's an emergency. We have to leave the house. Well, but I want to finish watching this show. So they started to drag their feet. That's just what kids do. They don't see the big picture. They're going, well, but I'm comfortable. There's no fire in the house. Yeah, well, but we're going to be burned up in an hour. Yeah, but that's an hour from now. I'll decide then. So the mother says, the 6-year-old started to get ready, but then came into my room to ask me questions. I told her, go get packed, and that I didn't want to answer any questions right now. But I had an unkind tone in my voice. I realized it when I saw the look on her face. Dang it. She started to cry and went back to her room to pack. We are always looking for excuses for our anger, all the time. Talking to a couple recently, the man told me, I have to get angry. This is after having been here for an intervention and read 2 of the books. It's like, were you blind and deaf as you read? He said, I have to get angry because otherwise she doesn't listen to me. Oh, we always have an excuse. We believe that because when we get afraid, our vision narrows to nothing. And all we see is anger. Our world shrinks to the size of just us when we're afraid. We see only one solution, as opposed to the person that I talked about earlier in this chat, whose solutions opened up when she remembered, oh, wait a minute. I'm loved. I can do this. But when we're afraid, our world shrinks down to a pinhole. It's like looking at the entire world through a keyhole. Fear makes us blind and stupid, and then we justify our stupid responses. And we justify our stupid responses because we've never seen urgent or direct action or speaking without anger. My grandson, and walking in the street, for example. If my little grandkids go to run across the street and they don't look both ways, then I bark at them. Hey, what do we do before we cross the street? But there's no confusion in their mind whether I'm angry. I had a grandson I think I talked about on a video chat who was attempting to cross the bridge across the creek when somebody was on the tire swing and was about to knock him off the bridge and break his neck. And I jerked him by the collar of his shirt, jerked him back. He didn't like it at first, but he understood that I was helping him. Most of us, however, have never seen such direct help, such directive action without anger. We don't have to be angry, but sometimes we do have to be direct, as this mother had to be with the 6-year-old. We're going to burn up. We're evacuating. Go get packed. But it doesn't require anger. I do it as I talk to people every day. Sometimes I'll say, hey, stop. Because the words flying out of their mouth are all motivated by fear. And they need a chance to stop and feel peaceful before they keep talking. They need to hear, they need to feel before they keep talking. But it doesn't have to be done with anger. And yes, some people think I'm being mean when I speak directly to them because, as we've said, all our lives, direct has always equaled angry. This mother continues, I took a few minutes to refocus. I overheard this. I heard my 14-year-old saying to the 6-year-old, referring to me, Dragon, Mommy. What a great name for a mother. Dragon, Mommy is just scared. It's not about you. Because her 6-year-old sister was crying. That's very sweet. And the 6-year-old understandably said, I don't care. Almost invariably, kids really don't care. They're not supposed to care about how their parents feel. They're the kid. They care only how their parents treat them, which is how it should be. It's the parent's job to love the child, not the other way around. So it's understandable that the kid would say, I don't care. She's just afraid. Too bad. She still has to be nice to me, which is true. So my 6-year-old stopped crying, the mom said. She got it. Even though she said, I don't care, she got the principle that her sister was right. And I heard it, which sobered me up really quick. And I went into their bedroom and told them that, yes, I was scared by the fire, by the potential harm, by our need to get out of the house. I got angry and I was wrong. I mean, if anybody ever had an excuse to get angry at a kid, we've got to evacuate a burning neighborhood would be one. No, it's still not the best thing to do. And the mother says, I shouldn't have done that. My 6-year-old is very forgiving, and she nodded to me when I said I was wrong. I knew they were just scared too and needed reassurance. And for me to keep my head on straight when there was a fearful situation. Yeah. And with your realization, you saved the day right in the middle of a fire, literally. The mother concludes, I'm still pretty amazed when I hear wisdom coming from my kids' mouths. It's very sobering for a parent, I tell you. No kidding. Pretty hard to stay angry at a kid when the kid points out that you're afraid and you're wrong. I don't remember who wrote this, but some member of the site wrote and said, my friend is 60 years old, my friend Fred, and his mother visited him and was upset and lectured him. He's 60 years old, lectured her 60-year-old son that he wasn't sorting his own laundry right at 60. Evidently, it is engraved in stone that underwear doesn't go with the towels. So after her visit, he wrote new words to the tune of, Jesus loves me, this I know. This is very cleverly done. I'm unworthy, don't you know? 'Cause my mama tells me so. Whate'er I do, I won't be right. I am wrong and she is right. Yea, I'm unworthy. Yea, I'm unworthy. Yea, I'm unworthy. My mama tells me so. Oh, it's a touching, sobering, and tragic story. 60 years old, and his mother is still telling him every time she interacts with him that he is unworthy. And with that one little song, he demonstrates how we all get damaged in childhood. He demonstrates the principle that I illustrated with the first story of the video chat with the man whose life has changed so much and didn't realize how screwed up he was. Why? Because my mama tells me so. The damage done to little children is unspeakable. And all the worse because we don't know what's happening. And little children are so young when the worst wounds happen that they don't even remember the wounds that then subsequently essentially define their lives. That is a 2-sentence description of what PTSD is. The greatest destruction in our lives happens very early. Here's somebody who says, I heard and read many times that real love is the only way to be happy. I notice when I talk to people who are not involved in real love and I hear about their happiness, unconsciously I think to myself, oh no, you couldn't be happy because you're not doing real love. I see that this is very unloving on my part because I'm judging them. A better reaction would be to think that I have chosen to learn and apply real love in my life because it makes me happy. And I don't have a right to judge whether other people are happy or not. If a woman tells me she's happy, I should just accept it and be happy for her and never search for something in her life to prove that she's not happy just because she's not doing real love. And that attitude is real love. Good for you. Real love works. No matter what objections people have to it, well, I don't understand it, I don't believe it, I don't blah, 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 because I've heard all of them, I think. I haven't heard a new objection in quite some time. It works. That's the defining standard for real love. It works. It works every time if it's applied consistently. That I know for a fact, like 2 + 2 is 4. But I never feel like, 1, people need to be doing it. I have no right to judge whether they're ready for it. 2, I never feel like it's the only way. If people find happiness another way, then I'm thrilled. I just know that real love works. So when people say, so you're telling me I have to do it your way? No, but you called me and told me you were miserable. And I know a way that does work. And we know that your way doesn't work. So we're going to subtract your way, and I'm going to suggest you try it this way, only because your way doesn't work. And if they say, no, okay, I got it. No is pretty clear to me. This person says, I feel that most of my politeness isn't based in caring about others. It's mostly based in wanting to be accepted by people that I admire and in feeling well-bred and gentlemanly, both selfish motives. And it may also be based in manipulative tendencies and a fear of rejection. Pretty poor motivations to be polite. And I got to say, how unbelievably brave of you to say. I would agree with you. For the most part, keep in mind, everybody who's listening doesn't know I know this person, but I would agree with you. Remember, you were raised by your mother, and I know you, and I know her through you. Your mother just poured on this sweet talk with you. I've read some of her letters. I mean, this woman writes letters that are just like out of a romance novel, just sweet, syrupy talk. And all the while, she does absolutely nothing to support you. Her behavior and her words don't match at all. And you've seen her do that with other people. She speaks sweet, syrupy words to them in person, and as soon as they leave the room, she stabs them in the back. She doesn't listen to you. She takes money from you that your father left for you without talking to you. Lots of nice talk, but not backed by loving behavior. So you were taught to be polite for appearance and manipulation, but you've had the courage to see it. That is very cool. Nice work. You continue. I think it would be good for my concentration to try always to be very clear and think before I speak. Oh, there's a maxim we could all use. And that it would be good for growing a habit of being courageous to stop sugarcoating my requests and be more straightforward about what I want. Let me just parenthetically add that this man supervises other workers, and often they get confused when he sweet talks them. Oh, would you mind loading those crates on the truck? Would it trouble you to... So what do they hear? It's no big deal. He's asking them a favor. He's their boss. He employs them. He pays them. So they think it's not urgent, and so then they don't do anything until he finally raises his voice and gets angry. So all he's ever seen is being falsely polite and then being angry to get people to do something. So now, speaking back to the writer of the letter, yeah, it's actually more loving and less confusing when you simply tell people what you want, especially in a work situation. Load those 4 crates on the truck, and it has to be done in the next 6 minutes. Now, look at me. Was that clear? Repeat back to me what I just said to you, especially if they've had difficulty taking you seriously before. You'll have to do that to know that they understood what you just said. All the sugary words just communicate that it's no big deal if they ignore you. He concludes, I shall try to rely on my intentions and natural tone of voice to communicate directly that I'm not being demanding or irritated, but I am issuing clear directions that can't be ignored. Exactly. Just like I do with one of my grandkids if they go to run across the street or in a parking lot without looking both ways. Hey, you, what do we do when we cross the street? Oh, we look both ways. And then, of course, they do. I'm right next to them by then, so they sort of go, they pretend to look both ways. A lady on Facebook wrote, she said, you want the real truth? This is like out of, what's that? A Few Good Men, when Jack Nicholson said, you want the truth? She said, you want the truth? I'm in love. That surprised me. Remember those first feelings of how it felt to be consumed? The obsession to think about, ruminate, dream about, anticipate? Well, that's falling in love. And I'm in love, but I'm in love with real love. Period. I'm living without guilt. I'm spending my time learning real love without guilt and shame. I'm seeing myself through the eyes of people who care about me. I'm getting used to saying I'm wrong when it's applicable, and the words are just coming easier, much to the surprise of the people who know me. I've even begun carrying around a little book, jotting down nuggets, little pearls of truth, and they're coming fast and furiously from these video chats, from posts, from calls, from the membership site. Who knew the wisdom that awaited me? I'm listening and hearing differently. I feel no need to talk a lot of the time. As much of the time, there's nothing to say. Now, this has been an adjustment for me. It feels a little awkward, especially when others around me are just jabbering like I always used to do and reminding me of how I was just a short time ago. And here's the confusing part to me. I had so much to say before. Why not now? Well, I'm guessing that you did a lot of complaining and victimhood before, which is what most people do. Many people can sit and complain in one spot all day long. I had somebody call me, 10 or 11 times before I finally said, okay. She said, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. But you can't say the name of your husband or he or him. Mute. She couldn't speak. She was rendered dumb. So that's very likely what you're experiencing. You're used to feeling and saying negative things or complaining or criticizing or controlling. Now that you feel loved, the need to do all those things is disappearing, which is leaving you with far fewer words. You will discover more words, but they'll be loving words, connecting words, encouraging words. It becomes so much more fun. She continues, why am I happy and eager to listen, especially on the calls, and the thought of sharing shuts me right up on the calls. I feel like a pimple-faced, tongue-tied teenager all over again when I'm on the calls. It's just unfamiliar, but it's lovely. As you said, you're in love with this. So it's just new. Keep learning. Keep in contact with people who can actually love you. Feel it. Enjoy it. Do what we've been talking about on this entire video chat over and over again. Keep finding the love you need. Trust the love you find. Remember the love that you found and trusted, and then practice sharing this love with the people around you. You're doing that already, which is why you feel so lighthearted, as can we all. I'll see you in a week.